Hey, hi everybody. Hi there. How are you? My name is Rachel Hull and I help teachers set up and maintain the literacy stations in their classroom. I'm also the face behind Teaching Firsties and literacystations.com. And I want to show you, let's see if I've had all sorts of technical difficulties. See, I'm on the wrong slide. Don't mind me. Okay. I also want to tell you to mark your calendars because on January 12th, 13th, and 20th, so that's a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and another Wednesday. So Tuesday the 12th, Wednesday the 13th, or Wednesday, January 20th, I'm hosting a free literacy stations workshop, and I'm really excited about it. You're going to learn how to really amp up your digital resources for your students, and I have so many ideas that I'm going to share with you. And all this digital stuff is hard and it's difficult to keep your kiddos engaged. I know our college kids are doing okay. We've got 4 kids in college, but then we have 2 that are still in public school. We have a sophomore and a 7th grader. And it's hard because it's the same thing every day after day after day after day. It's like Groundhog Day, you know, the movie. So it's hard to keep your kiddos engaged as a teacher. So this workshop is going to be a game changer for you. So I'm linking the registration information in the comments of this video and also in the description. So if you're rewatching it, then make sure you go back and sign up for it. Make sure you choose the one that you can attend and sign up for it. Now, space is very limited, so you're going to want to do that right after this video is over. I'm actually pre-recording this. Usually I try to go live. I think it's a little bit more genuine. It's really daunting and intimidating to go live on Facebook. You'd be surprised if you haven't done it, how scary it can be. But again, I think it's a little bit more genuine. However, we should be back in Indiana by the time this video is shown on Facebook. But I wanted to make sure that it was pre-taped because the last time we drove from Phoenix to Indiana, instead of the 2 days straight that it takes, I mean, if we really push it, it took us 5 days. So that was, waiting to drive over snowy mountain passes in Colorado and car trouble and, all the things. So I wanted to make sure that this was ready and out for you. So how is everybody? I imagine you guys have started school again. Back at school, and leave me a message in the comments. How did the first couple days go? Are you tired? That's you're tired. That's a dumb question. But I hope you had a strong start. We have such crazy circumstances surrounding our teaching right now. And I just really hope that 2021 starts strong and smooth for you. So let's go ahead and dive into this video. The first thing you'll want to do, if you haven't already, I know a lot of you have, download the free Literacy Stations Planner. And again, the link is in the comments and in the descriptions. And we're going to go through the second part of this today. In the previous video, we went through the first part. So let me show you really quick what that looks like. So here is the, make sure you can see that. Here is what it looks like on a PDF, and you can print this and write on it with a regular pencil, pencil and pen, or you can click on the field and type in it. So we're going to work on the second tab right here, which is station planning, and oh, sorry, I already typed in here. Obviously, you can type here. So that's where you're going to enter in your information. And so this is available on a PDF, but also it is available on Google Slides. And so same thing, you can click right here on this tab and go to the slide that you're going to start on. I like to put a star on this one so I can go back to it a lot. And I love this trick. When you go to your starred information on your Google Drive, it is right there. So let's go ahead. Let me go back to me here. Okay, let's go ahead and open up your planner and click on that second tab. So this is a 2-for-1 training for you today. In the previous video, I spoke about organizing your student groups to make sure that you maximize the potential for it, and also the importance of making sure it's students' needs before your content. In this video, I'm going to talk about what kind of literacy stations you want, the goals you're going to have for them, but most importantly, how are you going to plan to train your students how to use your stations. So I'm going to start with this list of stations that are pretty common, and they are right there. Oh, here we go. Okay. Sorry, go back. I promise I do have things all together. So look at the list of stations that are pretty common. In my classroom, I usually stick to the first top 5 stations, but I do like to mix and match them. Also, after a few years, if they start becoming stale, I'm going to really want to mix them up to make sure that our kiddos are still enjoying our literacy stations as much. So it's okay to mix them around. But I'd be cautious to just choose rating stations that you think are just going to keep your kiddos busy. You need to have a goal in mind first. So think about, what do you hope to accomplish at each station? Really think about, what is it for? So for example, look at the reading comprehension station. My goal for my, I call it my library station, is to take the reading strategies that I've taught my students and then have them practice it while they're independently reading at their own level. So they're not just reading for reading's sake, which is awesome too, but I really want to focus on the skill that I've taught them that week, so that I have a clear goal in mind. So there's going to be another training in this series about station content, so stay tuned for that. So let's turn back to this page in your literacy stations planner. And you can see the common or suggested literacy stations there, but you do not need to have all these. Please don't think that you need to have all of those. If you remember from a previous video, it's the importance of looking at your students' needs first before you choose your stations. So that way you'll have a better understanding of what stations you'd like to have. So if you notice your students are struggling with fluency, maybe you really want to beef up a fluency station where you have fluency phrases or sight words. Maybe you want to do a reader's theater station, or read with a partner, or really add more oral reading of poems at a poetry station. So I mentioned before that my stations were a hot mess. I can't even tell you. They were just a hot mess until I realized I was planning things backwards. I was looking at what to do instead of what I needed to do, and I didn't have any goals for my reading station. And I really thought, as a beginning teacher, I thought I need to look at what everybody else is doing and just mimic that, which is good to get ideas, but I realized I was planning my literacy stations based on what my neighbor teachers needed to teach their students and not what my students needed. And it just didn't match. I had to look at my students and what my students needed. And so after I learned not to make that rookie mistake, because literacy stations shouldn't be one size fits all, I chose stations based on my students' needs instead of just what I thought I should do because everybody else was doing. And so once that happened, everything kind of clicked into place and we were off to the races. So if you're watching this live, please know that it's January. And even if it's January, it's okay. It's an okay time to remove a station and replace it for another one if you feel like your students need it. So let's go back to this page. On this page, jot down your ideas for your literacy stations. And a word about virtual learning. If you're doing literacy stations during breakout sessions for guided reading, be kind to yourself. It's okay to do what you can. It's next to impossible to create all these resources from scratch for every station that you want to do and have them up and running to go. It's just nearly impossible. You don't have enough time. So I'm going to talk more about the end of the video about the workshop that I'm doing for literacy stations, but also the membership that has all these created for you, so you don't feel like you need to create them from scratch. But that's at the end, and let's move on to the next section, which is how to train your students at each station. In this case, and this is probably the only time you'll catch me saying this, it's probably easier to be fully digital in this case, because you, especially with the training thing, you can teach all of your kids at one time and they can all do it, assuming they all have their devices ready to go. You can videotape yourself giving the directions, or, use a screen sharing app, do like a screencasting video, and it's convenient to teach the whole class, and then they're all able to do it. So that's the only time that it's probably easier, because it's difficult to train a class of over 20 kids on how to use a station that only fits 3 or 4 kids. So if you're fully digital, you can probably skip this page, but pay attention to it, because there will be a day when you want to go back to it in your classroom. And when that day comes, then it's a good step to take. Now, there are 8 spots for your literacy stations. Do not feel like you need to make 8 literacy stations unless you feel like your students need it, unless you feel like you can fit it in your schedule. If you're up to the challenge and it's gonna work for your kiddos, you do you. But I purposely gave you more than you needed. So fill in the names of your reading stations right in there, and then below it, make a note or circle it, if you whether or not you can teach your whole class the station, or if you need to train a small group at a time. So let me give you something to think about with this. If you have a large classroom library, then your whole class can be taught how to choose the right book for them, how to take it back to their seat or find a quiet spot to read, how to exchange it for another one, etc. All of the things you need. You can do that with a whole class. It's possible to do that. But if you have a poetry station like I do, I have a poetry station with shared binders, and you need to teach the whole class. But when it comes time to watching them practice and having each of them try it on their own, you'll only have room for the amount of materials that you have. So I always had 3 binders with poetry puzzles at my poetry station at one time. In fact, here's one of them. This is Little Bo Peep. I'll go back to this in a second. But I only had 3 or 4 of these at my poetry station. So I had to make sure that I kept track of which students practiced the poetry station and which ones still needed a chance to try it out. So here's what you do. For the stations that you can train your whole class and have everyone practice at the same time, like your reading station, or if you have apps on your device that you're going to show them how to use independently, do that first. Make sure your class has enough consistent practice with those tasks and they've built up enough stamina. So you're going to want to look at the on your planner, which ones can you teach as a whole class, and teach those first. Then when you are ready to move to the stations that are for smaller groups, you're going to still teach them as a whole class, but let me see, but still teach them everything, lay out everything on your document camera, still go everything. So for example, I have a poetry station with poetry binders. I would bring up my poetry binder, put it on my document camera. I have these are envelopes, and actually these are available on TPT and my website, and they're in the membership. So if you're interested in these, this is nursery rhymes for my poetry station. And not everybody can have an envelope. I only have 3 or 4. So I would teach my whole class what to do, and then I'll give them an opportunity to practice, and I'll show you how to do that in a second, because it's too hard for all 20, 21, 24 kids in my to do this. So what they would do is they would scan the QR code and listen to the movie. There's a movie. Happens to be Little Bo Peep, and so they'd listen to Little Bo Peep, and then inside are poetry puzzle pieces with the poem, and they would put it in order, and they would use the poem in the poetry binder to do all that. So I would take all of this out and show it to your class whole group first, and then as your students are ready, you can go to the next thing here. When it came to practice, I would pull small groups back to allow them to practice while the rest of the groups practiced on the stations they've already learned. And so I use this page. This page comes in handy. Here you can map out where your students are needing to go to learn their stations. So you can write down the station name and how many on the left side and how many students have already practiced that, and then also where are the rest of your students going to be. That way you keep adding to that list until you have all of your students trained on that station, and then you move to your next station. Now, if you're teaching your students about reading stations using this method, I'd suggest taking 1 week per station. And I know that your time is valuable and you probably are under a lot of pressure to start your guided reading groups right away. But trust me, this is worth it to do it this way. You're going to minimize your student distractions because they're going to know what to do. You're not going to have nearly the amount of interruptions just basically, based on somebody that doesn't know any of the directions or doesn't remember what to do, or you haven't taught them and had them practice. So really, it's going to pay off in the long run because you're going to be able to focus on your guided reading if you really take the time to train them. So that's it for today. I hope you found this helpful. I'm glad you joined me here. Don't forget to register for the free Literacy Stations workshop where I'm going to give you so many new ideas for digital resources. Your student engagement is just going to skyrocket after you implement the ideas you're going to learn from these workshops. So I'm so excited. I can tell I'm excited. Really excited. So the dates are January 12th, that's Tuesday, January 12th, Wednesday, January 13th, and Wednesday, January 20th. January 12th and 13th are at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and the workshop on January 20th is at 7 p.m. So right when this video ends, make sure that you choose which event you can attend and make sure you register before the spots fill up because they are going to fill up pretty quickly. And I also mentioned, haha, that worked. Okay, I mentioned Literacy Stations Made Easy. And this is a teacher membership that I created, and it's only opened twice a year. Once right as school begins, and then once in January, right now in January. So this is an online teacher membership for all the resources that you need for your literacy stations. So do you remember how I said be kind to yourself and that it's impossible to create an entire library from scratch and have it ready to go? Well, I've done it for you. So what you need to do is you join the membership and you log on and you choose which literacy station you need materials for, and you choose which activity you want, you download it, and you assign it to your students. It's that easy. It's all ready to go. So there are digital and traditional resources available as well. So I'm opening the cart for Literacy Stations Made Easy on January 12th, and it'll only be open for limited time, so you're going to want to make sure you take advantage of this membership for the rest of your year for 2021. So thanks for joining me again. Remember to sign up for the Literacy Station workshop in the comments, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And I should be back on January 7th. So in 2 days, I'll be back to talk about station content. Have a good one.